Untamed is going to be untamed. It's going to be a little crazy. I want to talk to my people. I want to talk to my brothers and sisters. We can have grace and humility in how we interact with other people.
Oh, hot dog, look at you.
And nobody talked about what's really happening.
And let's have conversations about what truth is. Well, welcome back. I'm sorry I'm not back in the office yet. I'm a little bit remote, as they like to call it. We're going to, I'm sure many of you have seen the letter from Peter Tickton to President Trump. I had not realized, and maybe it was just an oversight on my part, but I had not realized that it's never been challenged, and that the Constitution allows for presidential pardons and the capability to have a pardon, but it's never been challenged. And if you look at the wording, it does allow for there to be a checks and balance system between the states and the federal government. And so as I'm reading, and I'm going to read much of the letter to you today, I started to get this feeling in my of why has this not been challenged? Why in 249 years have we not challenged any sort of state prosecutions? And I'll tell you why, because we've never been in a place where we've had this sleeper cell mentality, which can only be described as a sleeper cell mentality, and where you're dealing with kind of these unknowns, it's this overtaking of who we are as a nation. But here's let's get into the letter real quick. And we'll just start with this post that I put up. And, I didn't want to take away from the fact that it is closely related to Tina Peters, but it's been a very difficult 5 years. I'd be lying if I told you that it's been this easy kind of walk. And I have taken some massive hits. I have had people call me a liar. I have had people defraud me. I have had people say that I work for the government. I've had people have said all sorts of crazy things about me. And I learned something today that kind of shook me a little bit. And I still need to check and make sure it's true, so I'm not going to report on it. But a person that I thought was, tried and true and absolutely doing the right thing, turns out was an informant. and so I look at it and go, man, what else could happen in the midst of all this? And who's really on our side and who's not on our side? So I wrote this post as breaking free Tina Peters. I've waited 5 years for concise vindication. Now I know it is coming. Someone tell the treasure hunter to wait for the knock. He's the first run of lawsuits we were filing. They defamed me for 5 years. They canceled me. They called me a liar. They came for my family. They attacked my friends. I want blood, and I have no room in my heart for forgive these demons on both sides of the aisle. Patrick Byrne, none of this happens without you. Thank you. Lots of others to thank, but I'm telling you all now, Patrick led the way quietly and humbly. A lot of people take credit for what Patrick did. They don't really talk about the things that he was involved in. He did a post a couple days ago where he talked about taking down most of Wall Street. And it's not untrue. It's very, very, very true. But let's get into, because today's going to be kind of a different day. We're going to talk about Tina Peters. I know there's some things that are happening right now with Tina. I truly believe that she's going to be out. Jena Griswold, at a minimum, will be the first one to be arrested in Colorado. I think she's going to spend a couple decades in prison. Then you have to look at Jared Polis and Phil Weiser, who's probably the most corrupt out of the three of them. And then what's going to be the consequence for someone like Dan Rubenstein? And then what about who was a DA in Tina's deal? And then what about Matthew Barrett, the judge, and the investigators that hid information? And then there's this other guy, Matt Crane, whose wife worked for Dominion and Sequoia before Dominion with Eric Coomer for nearly 18 years. So, as I started putting together this puzzle and looking at who's who, and I just started to get to a place where I went, okay, maybe, just maybe, it's all going to come crashing down. But the second part of our show today will be about a LAPD police officer that the feds went after for doing his job, kind of like they did with Chauvin up in Minnesota, but this was a federal crime. Okay. I apologize. I'm getting a call from, I'm on the podcast. Okay, let's go back to the letter real quick. We'll put up page 1 for it. This is a... Sorry, I just got a... I can't do two things at once. If you're wondering why there's a thing, I just have Stephanie Lambert, who's going to join us with Trevor Kirk. Guys, if you guys could reach out to her to let her know or find out what the problem is as she gets on, I'd appreciate it. So let me read this to you. This is the letter from Peter Tickton, who is Tina Peters' lead counsel. It was dated December 6th, and this is a supplement to application for presidential pardon for Tina Peters. No application number has been assigned yet. Dear Mr. President, I know you are aware that Tina Peters is a 70-year-old Gold Star mother and that her trial was a travesty, where she was not permitted to raise her defenses. I could go on as to her character, but I prefer to take this opportunity to explain why Tina Peters is a critical and necessary witness to the most serious crime perpetrated against the United States in history. They stole our whole country for 4 years. Dominion and its employees operated an illegal operation on our soil, which was supported and controlled by foreign actors. The Colorado Secretary of State, Jena Griswold, aided and abetted Dominion and foreign countries that targeted Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters. First, Dominion directed Ms. Griswold to assist in deleting all data from Dominion brand election equipment by ordering a statewide trusted build. Secondly, Dominion demanded criminal charges be brought against Clerk Peters when it discovered that she had only one copy of the 2020 election conducted on Dominion branded equipment. She had the only copy, sorry. Clerk Peters' copy of data was lawful, and she was entitled to image and preserve the 2020 election data pursuant to the contract Dominion signed with her as a clerk of Mesa County. Moreover, Clerk Peters was required to preserve the evidence of the election for 22 months pursuant to federal law 52 U.S.C. 20701. Clerk Peters' lone copy of the Colorado 2020 election is essential. Moreover, as it explained below, regarding current investigations, Clerk Peters is a necessary and material witness. She can testify as to the chain of custody, corroborate recent responses to search warrants, etc. I want you to pay attention to what you said about search warrants. The second thing goes on here. He goes, the biggest picture of Venezuela, China's 20-year plot to overthrow the United States. 20 years, by the way, takes it back to 2005. And for those of you that don't know, this is in the letter, but don't know, is that Smartmatic acquired Sequoia voting system, and the first thing they did is they went and hired a drug-addicted guy that had a very shady criminal past named Eric Coomer as their chief architect. Now, Eric Coomer was just doing websites for small businesses, so I'm just trying to figure out how that would qualify him to be a chief architect. But there's more to that, but we'll get to that in a minute. The biggest picture of Venezuela, China's 20-year plot to overthrow the United States. On December 2nd, 2025, the United States government released the public version of Hugo Carvajal Barrios' proffer. The proffer disclosed the ongoing national security investigation that included Venezuela, Smartmatic, and Dominion. Mrs. Carvajal served as Venezuela's Director of Military Intelligence as a deputy of the National Assembly. Carvajal stated the Smartmatic system can be altered. This is a fact. The technology was later exported abroad, including the United States. Carvajal was referred to the Dominion brand equipment and the Dominion Company. In 2006, numerous Venezuelans worked for Smartmatic were deployed to the United States. By the way, this was in Chicago, and given visas and began modifying the Sequoia brand election equipment in Chicago, Illinois. A faction of the United States government knew that one of the Venezuelans, Ronald Morales, and other Venezuelans were requesting visas for the purpose of accessing the United States election equipment. The United States officials responsible for granting the visas intentionally ignored the serious national security risk and allowed the Venezuelans and the Venezuelan government to access the United States critical infrastructure. In 2020, Ronald Morales worked for Dominion under the direct supervision of Eric Coomer, David Moreno, and John Polis. Unbeknownst to Colorado County clerks including Clark Peters, Mr. Morales, Mr. Coomer, and Mr. Moreno were the three main people working on our soil to overthrow the government in 2020. Now, people, I'm going to read a little bit more of this, and you should read the whole letter that's up. I mean, there's several places that they put it up. But I want you to remind you that had Eric Coomer kept his mouth shut, not been on that call, I wouldn't have been involved in any of this. Yeah, I just wouldn't have. And maybe down the road, I would have probably peeked under the hood about what was going on with the election. But it was that fateful night when I was up elk hunting that I put all the pieces together. You have an Antifa guy that hates America, that wants to kill cops, that is at best, a really, 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 really troubled guy who hates our country. But that led to me to put all the pieces together. And then that led in December for me to do an analysis of how they stole the election. Like how, if Dominion said that they didn't steal the election, is it possible for them to steal it? And then the great part about all of this is that I was able to build a map. Basically, I was able to build a picture of how they stole the election, where the vulnerabilities were. And then I was able to tell them what was going to happen in the Senate runoff race that happened on January 5th, 2021. And everything down to percentages, what happened, the function of the systems, all came true on January 5, 2021, which led me to go meet at the State Department on January 6th. Now, keep all that in mind as you go through this. In 2020, so Morales, Coomer, and Moreno's participation included orchestrating access to county servers, implementing VPNs to allow remote access to modify ballot images and data prior to being recorded in volatile memory. Implemented programming to allow remote entry and deleted of remote entry on the election equipment. Executed modifications after EAC certification that were not disclosed to the EAC. Executed modifications after logic and accuracy testing that were never disclosed to county clerks. Implemented and deployed versions and equipment not consistent with contracts and agreements. Altered the deleted data, including tally data prior to certification of elections. Implemented and concealed foreign access to election equipment prior to certification, mislabeled Dominion brand products to conceal foreign actors, lied to United States government officials about foreign parts and involvement to prevent exposure and oversight, lied to the United States government, and failed to disclose the Dominion files were breached on SolarWinds serve you to the United States government after receiving the NSA warning to patch a Microsoft vulnerability, and made changes to the functioning of the adjudication software until the end of October 2020 past certification in logic and accuracy testing. Now, this is where it goes into Mesa County Clerk Peters and a lone copy of the 2020 data. Secondary bit of data that was also done, and that secondary bit of data was done with Dallas in Elbert County. Now, he went to court, and the court did exactly what the court does in Colorado, and it forced Dallas to turn over that copy of the information in Elbert County. So there was only one area that we were allowed to study, and that was the image that was done in Mesa County. So in 2021, Dominion, in an effort to cover its tracks, demanded that Jena Griswold install a trusted build to take the place on all Colorado branded equipment, Colorado Dominion brand equipment. Dominion used the Colorado Secretary of State to coordinate the SWIFT plan, which was to delete all evidence of the 2020 election. All clerks were notified they must schedule and allow the Secretary of State's employees to install Dominion's trusted build. Okay, Clerk Peters was lied to by Dominion and Ms. Griswold's office and told that the trusted bill would not wipe and overwrite the 2020 election data, but it did. Excuse me. Oh boy. Well, you get the whole thing on this podcast. After the trusted bill was installed, Clerk Peters conducted a subsequent preservation of data, and she learned that it had, in fact, wiped and overwritten 29,000 files of the election record, which were required to have been preserved by federal law. And in fact, the records of the adjudication, access logs, and audit log files were completely and irreparably deleted. On August 4, 2021, it became publicly known that Clerk Peters had preserved a bit-for-bit copy of the Mesa County 2020 election conducted on Dominion-branded equipment. When the copy was displayed for the nation on an election integrity event, all passwords have been redacted and changed, and there was no legitimate compromise to Mesa County election security. Upon learning of the loan copy, Dominion immediately contacted Jena Griswold in her capacity as Secretary of State that Clerk Peters be criminally charged with obtaining a copy of the 2020 election data prior to the installation of the trusted bill. Colorado Secretary of State promptly contacted Mesa investigator Detective Cannon, who commenced a criminal investigation to charge Clerk Peters, despite knowing that her image of data was not a crime. So I just want to point this out. Go ahead, take it down. You can see there's 5 more pages. I'm not going to read it to you, although I probably will read it into the record and put it out there for everyone in a subsequent podcast. But here's the problem. They did an investigation, and as they went through the investigation, they knew that they could not charge her with anything related to the gathering that election information. As the report started to come out, they started gaining access to that this guy over here had a badge that was used, and that badge gave someone else access to make the image. There was a few things that were done in this that were done by people that had pushed Tina Peters and said, hey, let's turn off the cameras, let's do this. That she didn't need to do any of that. She had subsequently already talked to the IT department in Mesa County, who declined to do the image because she went there first. So I will tell you, the more and more we start to look at this application, you should read all 8 pages, the more you start to get to the place where you recognize what the state of Colorado and other states have done to steal the voice of the American people. And look, they have lied with impunity. They have continued to lie over and over and over again to hide their crimes. And in large part, they use words in order to convince you that what they're saying is accurate. In other words, misinformation, disinformation. They bring in people like Matt, what's Matt's last name? Matt, help me, guys. Why can I never remember his name? Colorado, the head of the Colorado Secretaries of State Association. Why can I never remember his name? Yeah, Crane. Matt Crane. Thank you. So Matt Crane is the one that bullied the other county clerks and recorder. The entire system of going after Tina Peters and the kangaroo court and keeping her from having a defense and keeping her from presenting information related to why she did what she did. And she basically ran a covert operation in order to uncover the fraud that was committed by the Secretary of State and the state of Colorado, including the governor and including Phil Weiser, who is the Attorney General. So we have some serious problems in Colorado, and none more important than getting Tina Peters out of jail. Now, this is an application for pardon. My guess is that very quickly, President Trump is going to issue a pardon for Tina Peters. And that's where things are going to get very, very, very interesting. But I want to, before I bring our guests on, and this is going to be a second story all on its own, because what we're talking about is what pardons should President Trump enact? Everyone got mad because he pardoned a drug dealer. I don't really know a lot about that case, but I do know that we had a woman that bombed Congress that was let out of prison, pardoned by Biden, who promptly went and joined the BLM Antifa movement. So it's not, I don't want to say that I have it all figured out and that I agree with every pardon that he's put on the table. But I think anyone that is fruit of the poisonous tree, anyone that got railroaded by the Department of Justice, or injustice, as you could call it, I think every one of those people should receive a pardon. I believe Joe Biggs, Stuart Rhodes, these are 2 men, among others, that got a commutation of their sentence, did not get a full pardon. They should be pardoned fully. There should be no politics that play a part in the bad behavior that was committed by the Department of Justice. And whether or not you like it or not, those people should receive a full and unconditional pardon. I think Tina Peters should receive a full and unconditional pardon. And I think the president does, as it is spelled out in this document, has the power in order to do that. But we have to get to the place where we start looking at why. I put up this post. I came across this video, and I've always had a thing where I started looking at game theory, and game theory is really not. It's not really a theory, it's actually math. So I wrote this up. I said, I came across the video from Professor Ying on game theory. It's a masterclass on when the deep state refused to fully pardon J6 leaders like Joe Biggs and Stuart Rhodes. Watch, in a zero-sum world where only one side wins, alignment is your unbreakable edge. Allies don't defect, they're locked in because betrayal flips the board and costs everything. This is why you don't see anybody that's basically getting off the train. You have people that are going to jail that are Democrats that did things wrong, but they don't flip because they know what the outcome would be for the rest of the people on that board. Biggs, with his Proud Boys, and Rhodes, Oath Keepers, aren't just guys. They were leaders of parallel militias, ideologically synced like hawks on a wire. Pardon them fully, they cannot let that happen. They need to crush the alliance to preserve the fraud against the American people. Game theory isn't theory, it's math. They calculated, kept them caged as symbols, dangled partial mercy to sow doubt, preserve the alignment that crushed dissent. In other words, the machine is still intact, even under President Trump. So lots of pardon need to happen. We must strengthen the alliances of good and accept the reality of the evil alliances that are within our ranks. So I want to play this quick video. It's just a couple minutes, and it gives you a better idea of kind of how I see things that are going forward and why it's been so difficult to kind of turn away from some of the things that we're dealing with in the political realm. All right, go ahead and play it.
Let's do game theory. Game theory is just a study of how to win games, okay? It's a very general thing. Let's do a thought experiment and just say there's about 1 million people in the world, okay? There's 1 million people in the world all trying to win the game against each other, but only one can win. According to game theory, the best way to win a game is by, does anyone know? Cheating, okay? If you follow the rules, you will never win the game, you have to cheat. And in this game, the best way to win is by coordinating with other people, right? Because everyone's playing by himself. So if you can work with other people, then that gives you a huge advantage over everyone else, right? The problem with this is the moment that people start coordinating, it forces an arms race of coordination. So maybe these people are working together. These 4 now are forced to work together, which now forces these 5 to work together. If you are the first to work together, you get screwed in the process. So if you cheat, you have to cheat secretly. You have to coordinate without people knowing you're actually coordinating together. You have to conspire secretly. And there are different ways to collaborate secretly, okay? So let's look at examples. So family is one example, right? Another example is religion. If you have a leader, if you have a similar race, ethnicity, you have a similar language. Okay, so these are examples of how you get people to coordinate together. The problem is that these are all obvious to people, which forces them to do the same thing. But there's a strategy that you can use that allows you to coordinate secretly and defeat all your enemies. And this strategy is called transgression. Transgression. The breaking of taboos, the breaking of social norms, the breaking of social laws. Okay, so let's study this concept. The theory is that the greater you transgress, okay, this is the level of transgression, the greater your cohesion, which leads to synchronicity. Okay, that's a theory I want to propose to you. All right?
All right, so what I want you to consider is that game theory is kind of where we're at right now, and that math is what they've used in order to capture different parts of our society. Now, I'm going to bring our guests in. I'm going to tell you, and we have 2 guests. So we have Trevor Kirk, who is a former LA Sheriff's Department deputy. Let me just tell you a little bit about him real quick. He's a 10-year Army veteran, combat tested, Brown Star recipient, he was a former sheriff's deputy who always had his brothers and sisters back in the toughest neighborhoods of LA. He didn't back down. But here's what they did. The DOJ and Kamala Harris's California machine targeted him after a viral 17-second cell phone clip from 2023. They charged him federally for simply doing his job and moving a disruptive bystander who was interfering with an arrest. Convicted in 2025 by a downtown LA jury on felony civil rights violation. Later reduced to a misdemeanor of 4 months in prison. The case may call the poster child for this weaponization of federal law enforcement against street cops. He was backed by his sheriff, and frankly, he wasn't. You know, I'm not. We've man. I backed the blue individually. And so I went ahead and did a bunch of research on Trevor to make sure he was a good guy. And Stephanie Lambert, who's one of his attorneys, is going to be on here as well. But I've told you guys, my brother was murdered by a police officer in 2017. They got away with it, right? They literally murdered my brother in cold blood. They were the judge, jury, and executioner. But that's not this case. This is a guy that went into the toughest neighborhoods and had at all points he had to keep his head on a swivel. At all points he had to serve the community the best he could with what he had in front of him, in a place where it's riddled with crime. So I wanted to make sure when I went through this that I had it right. And the reason why I'm having him on at the same time we're talking about Tina Peters is that he got sentenced to 4 months in prison. And basically they used him as the poster child and ruined his life, much like they did with Fred Galvin. And he's been sentenced, and he should receive an unconditional pardon from President Trump. So that's what I'm going to ask everyone after this to do. And I've already gone through it. I have not had the chance to actually speak with him. But if there's anyone that is deserving of a pardon, it's definitely Trevor Kirk. So Trevor, Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joe, for having us on.
Yes, thank you, Joe. I appreciate it, sir.
So I will start with this. Stephanie comes to me. We talk quite often. She's my sounding board to keep me from going a little crazy over all the stuff that is happening across the country. But when she believes in you, she believes in you. And she called me and said, you really need to talk to Trevor. So first I want to tell you, thank you for your service. Thank you for, then continuing that service to serve the hardest, one of the hardest communities in our country.
Thank you.
Walk me through that 17-second video.
Yes. So basically the backbone, right, is I get called to a Winco. It's a local grocery store. Pretty sure it's a big chain across the country. It's a felony in progress, a robbery occurring now. My partner and I show up. We detain the male suspect. I'm not going to go too in depth because it's still in appeals. We detain the male suspect. The female suspect standing behind me, my partner positively identifies her. I go to make contact with her to go detain her to conduct an investigation as any peace officer in this country would do. When I go to detain her, she tries to assault me and says, "You can't touch me." And that's when I conducted a takedown. After the takedown, she's still actively resisting the detention portion of the arrest. And that's when I decided that, control holds and intermediate control techniques weren't working. So I pepper spray her to gain compliance. The 17-second video that we see is a fraction of that entire interaction. It doesn't show the portion where she tries to assault me. It doesn't have full audio of everything she's saying. It doesn't show her the up close. Any peace officer is going to look for small indicators of fight or flight, which makes us do what we do when it comes to force and when it needs to be applied. So that small 17-second video did not portray in any instance of what I saw and the threats that I perceived at the moment. So,
Joe, if I could add a little context,
Yes.
I'm working with a number of attorneys on this matter and officers and a number of really good people working to get a pardon for Trevor Kirk. It's one of the most meritorious pardons, I think, that should be, granted this year. When Trevor and his partner were arriving and dispatched, the reports all indicate that these two individuals that had just committed the robbery had already assaulted the store security. So they had already been violent, and they were informed of that as they were arriving on the scene. And when they arrived on the scene, the male suspect was compliant, put his hands behind his back. They took him into custody. And it's really clear from the other video that the media didn't show that as Officer Kirk was directing the female suspect to comply and put her hands behind her back, she had out her phone. And then as he went to take her into custody, she tried to assault him. So she had already assaulted with the male suspect the two people inside the store, and now she tried to assault Officer Kirk. And then he used, and there was a witness that testified at trial. I didn't try this case. A fantastic attorney named Tom Yu tried the case before the LA jury. There were experts that said Trevor used all of his trained techniques to take her into custody, the least amount of force possible, but this was an armed robbery. And what happened following that is the warrant request was sent down for the two suspects, and rather than the LA prosecutor charging the two individuals with robbery or with assaulting these store clerks or with a, obstruction of justice or any of the charges they could have been charged with, rather they contacted the Biden DOJ, where there was a line of action on officers to silence them, make them afraid to do their jobs. And Officer Kirk was then charged with a civil rights violation, and it was tried before an LA jury, where unfortunately he was convicted and didn't really get a fair. Obviously, this wasn't fair. He was just doing his job. So, as a result, Tom Yu has that matter on appeal. He does have a 4-month sentence that he's supposed to report for in January. And hopefully the appeal gets processed rather quickly, but those take a long time. And that's why we're trying to obtain a pardon, not only for Officer Kirk, but for every officer that goes into work every day and wants to have the ability to be comfortable that when they go to perform the very trained techniques that they spent months learning and follow all protocol and policies, that they aren't going to be charged federally and have their lives ruined.
I don't think you could have said it any better, Trevor. Sorry. So let me ask you a question that I think that everyone wants to know. When how long were you on the job at the LA Sheriff's Department before this incident?
So before the incident, I was on for coming up on a little over 3 years, coming up on 4 years. So I graduated the academy in January of 2020, and I spent a little over a year and some change in the county jails. So our department, we start at the county jails, you put your name out for patrol, and then you wait for your custody list to start, or I'm sorry, your patrol list to start. So I was on for a little under 4 years. I was out on patrol for a little over a year, and which 6 months of those was patrol training. So by myself, it was a little over 6 months.
Okay, so when you got into the situation, what was the circumstances of the robbery? What did they steal? Or were they
So it's called an Estes robbery out here in California. So whenever somebody tries to use force or fear in lieu of shoplifting, it's elevated from the misdemeanor shoplifting, depending on the price, and it gets elevated to a felony robbery. So from my understanding, they were stealing items at self-checkout. They were confronted by store personnel. They got upset, spit in their face. And there's that force and fear element while stealing items from the store. So, and then that's when we were called after she had spit on the employees.
So isn't that a crime by itself, the spitting on employees?
Yes. So even if, let's say, they put the items down and they weren't stealing the items anymore, it's still a battery. You know, you're committing a battery. It's a misdemeanor not committed in our presence. So it's still a crime.
And were either one of them ever charged with a crime? Well, this
They were not. They were arrested for the charges, but Gascon did not follow up and charge them.
So you got hung out to dry by your superiors.
Yes.
Well, it's more than that, Joe. What I've been told is that the superiors actually contacted the Biden DOJ and requested that Officer Kirk be, used as an example and charged. So can you imagine you're in a store in a violent area, you're, just a cashier trying to get through the day. And when a robbery like this happens and your own employees get assaulted, the lesson they all learned is that if you call the police, if the police actually take people into custody, that the police will be charged with a crime, right? So what kind of message does that send to so many people, not only the officers, but the community, where businesses are just trying to get through the day, the clerks are trying to do their job, and it's violent. It's awful.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. I grew up in an area where it was, anything could happen. You could be shot on the street because somebody just pulls by and wants to shoot you, right? So and you're in the middle of that. What part of LA were you in? Were you patrolling?
Yes, so I was patrolling. It's Lancaster, California. Right now, it is the busiest patrol station in Los Angeles County, and that derives from any crime you could possibly fathom: murder, assault with deadly weapons, with knives, guns, baseball bats, vehicles. Um, the amount of car crashes, dead bodies. It. I described it because I went and did a proffer with the FBI. I described it as a war zone, and it truly is. And the people that this affects the most, yes, it's shaken my life to the core, but it really affects the people of LA County out in the Lancaster, Palmdale. It's they're two neighboring cities. It's the Antelope Valley. It affects them more than it affects me mostly, and that's what we all signed up to do, is to serve the community. And when they do this to law enforcement, they're not just hurting one person, they're hurting the community that's suffering out there. People are getting murdered in broad daylight in droves in Lancaster, and they're taking deputies off the street to serve a political a political statement. And it's sickening. It's shameful. So
Trevor, where did you do your deployment?
So, no combat deployment. We went to Korea. I was stationed up at Fairbanks, Alaska. And then when Kim Jong-un was shooting rockets over Japan, they sent us over there kind of as like a, mobilization, get some troops on the ground over there in Korea, and just hold it down. So,
Would you say that Lancaster is as dangerous or more dangerous than, say, Iraq?
yeah, maybe, obviously during the surge, that might have been a different story. Those guys were putting their lives on the line. But towards the later years, when things got a little more stagnant and stabilized, I would definitely say that some portions of this country have gotten worse than an actual militarized war zone. I would definitely say the streets are a very dangerous place for peace officers right now.
All right,
Not
so
just from criminals, but from, the politics that are at play here.
well, I mean, let's just talk about it. This whole case against you had a chilling effect on other police officers. So I assume
Oh.
that crime in Lancaster has gone up since this case began.
Yeah, I'm a little out of the loop, but I follow these, everything's on social media these days. There's these guys that go around, they call themselves the scanner news guys. And they basically follow behind, patrol cars and monitor the crime so the public can hear about it. And it's the same nasty, murderous business that's happening. And, my partners are afraid to do their job because they don't want to end up like me. They don't want to end up, getting tried for doing your job. They don't want to get killed by the suspect for doing their job. They're afraid to hesitate and get themselves killed or get a partner killed because of this case. And it's sad. It shakes me to the bone.
When you got out of the military, this is what you wanted to do. You wanted to serve the community, correct?
It was. So I was an explorer. It's like the cadet program for the sheriff's department. I did that prior to joining the military. And I knew going into the military that this was a stepping stone. I wanted to get the discipline. I wanted to get in shape. You know, I wanted to be prepared for my future career. And I've known since I was 15 years old that this is what I wanted to do. And then here we are, you know, it's sad.
So this has had a tremendous effect not only on the police force locally, but we have over 125 officers that have written letters on behalf of Trevor Kirk from around the country, saying this has sent a chilling message to all of these different communities. And what we're asking for is for anyone listening to this that feels compelled to write a letter on behalf of Trevor Kirk and send it to Ed Martin at the White House. I'm sorry, at the Department of Justice, so that they can review all of these letters and how this is impacting these officers and the fear that they feel to do their job. And, look at the message that it sent to the two people committing the robbery, right? That if you're violent enough with the officers, nothing will happen to you, right? It will happen to the officers. So my car just turned off. It's just been awful for Trevor. And this has had a terrible effect on Trevor's family, especially at the holidays. He has an elderly relative that he's caring for personally. He has small children and one on the way. And this has just been awful.
You're not supposed to
for
tell
them.
that. That was my next question.
Oh, I told a secret. I apologize.
That's
So,
totally fine. The cat's out of the bag.
so Trevor, you're married.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I've been married to my wife, Megan. We grew up in the Allen Valley, and we've known each other since elementary school. So we have two beautiful babies, Maggie and Elliot, and we got little Millie. We found out it's a girl, so we're gonna name her Millie. She'll be due in June. So
Awesome.
yeah, so I'll have my two girls and my boy.
Trevor, let me ask you a question. Would you ever abuse someone in the community just for power?
Never, never. It's not what I've sworn fealty to the Constitution twice. Once as a soldier, and then when I got onto the department. And the patriot in me would never go out and assault somebody because I have a tin badge and a gun on my hip. It's absurd. It's shameful that they even did this.
Well, let me. I'm gonna dig a little bit just because I always ask very inappropriate questions, and I ask appropriate
I
questions.
can vouch for that.
I've gotten very used to those.
So I want to ask the question. You heard before that my brother was murdered. He was my favorite, right? I'm one of 8,
and I'm very sorry to hear that, sir. That
It's
hurts
awful.
yeah.
And so I have friends that are police officers, and they're just amazing, right? But they have to deal with officers that aren't amazing.
Yeah.
The problem is that it seems like the unions are willing to take a good officer like yourself and throw the book at you, while allowing for others to commit crimes and against people in the community that basically bolsters what you had to deal with. I mean, you had to deal with that because, frankly, let's be honest, there's no opportunities in Lancaster, right? You have opportunity deserts, you have education deserts, and you have actual food deserts, right? They keep everyone hungry, right?
Yeah.
So how do you, how does it affect you being around, and did you get to experience other police officers that maybe were over the line? And did that bring you back to some of those experiences where, like, you turn and you say, how in the world I did what I was supposed to do here, and you guys let these guys get away with X, Y, and Z?
So fortunately, during my, I was only on for 3 years. I've heard of absolute horror stories, right? And every deputy that joins LA County, you hear about it. During my tenure on, I did not see really any misconduct. I was fortunate in that way because, but I have seen deputies that have committed crimes, and I've actually arrested deputies that have committed crimes. And any good peace officer, and this doesn't just apply to Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. I know it, any good cop is looking for the bad cop because one, you want to stay away from them. Two, you don't want them on the job because, they go and do something stupid like sell dope or take dope and they're ODing in their bathroom at the police station, and it just gives us that bad name. And any good cop is looking for the bad cop to actually get off the street and get away from the community. That's not what we swore fealty to. We didn't swear fealty to our departments. We swore fealty to the Constitution and to the people. So I hope that answered the question.
Joe, I'll have to send you the letters that have been written on behalf of Officer Kirk because so many officers said he's just, this upstanding guy that does his job like he's supposed to. And I think we're all kind of getting that here. He's just a nice person that does what he's supposed to do. And that's what all of these glowing letters say, that his character is impeccable. He's never had any issues before. So this is just awful that this was done to him by the LA district attorney and the Biden DOJ.
Why do you think they made you an example? Like, why'd they pick you? Is it because you have that, I want to say squeaky clean, but you have that clean mentality? I mean, do you think that they really just wanted to go? I mean, why?
So this has been going on for 2 years, right? I've had a lot of time to sit and think about what the whys, it's very hard for me to pinpoint why. I think it was just the perfect storm. A white LA County Sheriff's deputy takes down a female black suspect. They had a perfect snippet of just, in that view, it looked like I just ran up and took her to the ground, which wasn't the case at all. And it was just the perfect storm, unfortunately, and it just ties in with certain politics, especially out here in California, where they want to make us look bad, and I just fell into that perfect storm, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've watched the entire video, and I would have done exactly what you did. And I think that's what, and I know that there's a temperament, there's a temperature that exists in the community.
Yeah.
And it's, I like to equate it to this. The community is looking for their pound of flesh, right? They feel betrayed. They can see it, smell it, taste it. And then somebody comes up and sticks a stick in them. They break the stick off, so that's infected. I mean, sorry, this is a long example, but it's what I know poorest of communities actually go through because I grew up poor, right? So then somebody walks up, whispers in their ear, it's that white guy over there that's the police officer. That's the problem. When in actuality, it's the people that work within the community that have betrayed the trust of the community itself and taken away the ability for them to have opportunities. And opportunities is the key that leads to people, living a productive life, right? Because they feel like they're purpose.
No, absolutely. I agree. And, any street cop's going to know that, you get your distaste from the public from every here and there. And my argument to them would always be, look, I'm here to enforce the laws, right? I don't make the laws. If you have an issue with the laws at hand, take it up with the lawmakers that you guys keep voting in place. It's not police officers' fault that we're going and doing a job that, oh, well, you signed up for it. Yes, I did. I signed up to defend the Constitution and to defend, the state and, but when they come at peace officers, it's misguided anger. Bring it up with your lawmakers. They're the ones that are kind of holding you back. So,
Joe, I think it's actually, there's a bigger picture to this with under the Biden administration, all of the illegals with, let out of prisons, we're learning that were brought into this country. I think it was designed to weaken police forces, right? Because if you target people like Trevor Kirk and he's afraid to do his job, now the entire force is afraid to do their job. And then they slowly quit, find different careers, and then no one wants to replace them. So you've weakened the police in the country, and it was a way of destabilizing law enforcement as a whole. right? And we saw the targeting and the line of action with other agendas as well, right? Any doctor that recommended certain treatments during COVID, their medical license was targeted. If you were an attorney and you stood up on election matters and represented clients on unpopular causes, they went after your law license. So I think this was much bigger than trying to address accountability with officers, because Trevor Kirk here followed protocol. It was to silence and put in fear the officers as a whole.
And sorry, to add to that, right? So my partners, after the conviction, they were turning in their pepper spray, right? They didn't want to get, and this was hundreds of deputies all across the county. They were turning in their pepper spray saying, I don't want to get a felony. Deputy Kirk did exactly what he was trained to do. And you're going to put him in prison for doing his job. So they were turning in their pepper spray. They boycotted Baker to Vegas, which is like a countrywide renowned running event. They boycotted it for the conviction and to show support because they weren't going to go strike. We can't strike. Peace officers can't do that. It would be full anarchy if they did that. But what they did is they boycotted Baker to Vegas as a show of force, saying, when's the line going to be drawn when you're targeting cops for doing their job?
Well, that leads me to another part of this, which I think we have to examine. It's not just the finding of guilt. It's there. This took a little bit of a turn where you can see the weaponization up front and personal by the judge himself. So Bill, is it Asaley, the new Trump-appointed U.S. attorney?
Yes, Bill Asaley.
So Bill Asaley moved to drop the case entirely after reviewing the evidence. And even the original prosecutors agreed to throw it out on appeal, right? To dismiss it on appeal. You appealed it, they were going to dismiss it. The judge steps in and says, no. Why do you think the judge moved against the attorneys and said, no, we want our pound of flesh?
Well, Joe, this is Judge Stephen Wilson that you're referring to in the United States District Court in LA. It was appointed by Reagan. He's elderly. His staff, all of LA is liberal, okay? But I have other experience in front of Stephen Wilson. He's the judge presiding over the Hunter Biden versus Patrick Byrne case, where Patrick had, publicly said that he turned into the FBI evidence as it relates to Hunter Biden and, negotiating nuclear weapons with Iran. And so Hunter, during his dad's administration, which subsequently he asked for a pardon that would cover this date range, right? Sued Patrick, and I think it was because he wanted access to what evidence Patrick had on him. So that judge, is presiding over that case and has made some unique rulings, and so it's not really consistent with, the Reagan agenda in when he was appointed, a million years ago. So I don't really understand what the judge was thinking, but it was more of a ruling that was consistent with supporting the Biden administration. The Department of Justice brought the charges, and the Department of Justice should be able to dismiss the charges.
Yeah, I find that completely it's mind-boggling. Like, how can you have a attorney that brings it forward, reviews the evidence, have a new attorney, new set of eyes on it, and they said, yeah, we're going to get rid of this case, and they continue that case because, Trevor, you lost your Second Amendment rights. I mean, it's a felony.
Yes. Luckily, it got reduced to a misdemeanor. So if heaven, hopefully, I don't do my 4 months, and then I'm going to have a year of supervision under the probation. They say after the year I can get my firearms back, but it's already been 2 years since I've turned in my firearms. I've lost it for well over 2 years. So, and that means something pretty big to me. The founding fathers made that the second, right for a reason, and they just stripped it away like it was nothing. And I'm confined to, Central District of California. I have a good amount of family that live in Tehachapi, and now I can't even visit them. It's, out of bounds. So, I have to get permission. I have family in Vegas. I'm not allowed to see them. It's sickening. I'm stuck in a hole, and hoping, praying that Donald Trump delivers on his promise to law enforcement. And,
So
I think he will.
I want you to do something. I'm going to give you the next couple minutes. I want you to talk directly to Ed Martin, and I want you to talk directly to President Trump. If you had an opportunity to sit in front of him face to face, what would you tell him? Why would you ask them to pardon you?
Yeah, so this pardon is bigger than just me, right? It's about all of law enforcement, right? The thin blue line is there for a reason. It separates chaos from order, right? And if that continues to get dwindled down, then it's not going to just be, Estes robbery suspects that aren't complying. It's going to be murder suspects that go out running and gunning relentlessly. It's about the community. And, the pardon is much bigger than me. It's to show law enforcement that this administration cares for its deputies, its highway patrolmen, their police officers, their state troopers, even the federal agents, like I see ICE going out and doing their job, and God bless them. Now they're catching political flack from one side. And it's about the entirety of law enforcement and the communities we serve. That's what it's always been about for 99.9% of us. And that's why I hope, they find it in their heart to pardon me, to show law enforcement that they care.
Trevor, are you going to go back to law enforcement? He gives you a pardon. Were you going to go back and do the same thing and serve your community?
I would. Because, it's easy to step away from something when something bad has happened. That's the easy thing to do. The hard thing to do would, muster up, put the badge and boots back on, and go serve the communities because they need us. There's a staffing shortage countrywide in law enforcement right now, and it hurts the community, and it's sad. It's sad.
All right. Stephanie?
Joe, I would love letters sent to Ed Martin at the Department of Justice, thousands of them. If people are watching and see Officer Kirk talking here today and want to support him, they can do that. And we would very much appreciate letters of support saying we don't want officers in fear when they're performing their jobs, when they're performing their protocol, right? I mean, this is the first time I don't think I knew that these officers turned in their pepper spray after this happened to Officer Kirk. I didn't know that. And the pepper spray has an important purpose, just like tasers. That's a, reduced level of force before you have to get out a deadly weapon. So what the
Exactly.
officers were communicating there is really significant. They were saying, if the person doesn't comply, I'm not going to use deadly force. They get away. What a terrible message. The whole force did that. That's awful. Right. And so please include these things in your letters to Ed Martin, and please ask for Officer Kirk to quickly get a pardon so that he can enjoy the holidays with his family without this hanging over his head, and know that he's going to have a job to return to and health benefits and be able to provide for his small children and wife.
Trevor, I'll write you a letter personally, and I'm headed to DC in a couple weeks, and so I will hand deliver it as well. So,
Sir, thank you so much, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
It means a lot.
God bless you guys. Stephanie, always great to have you on. Trevor, I'll be praying for you even after the show. We finished it off with a prayer. We'll pray for you and your wife and your children and your daughter to be. So congratulations on that.
Thank you, sir.
All right. God bless you guys.
Thank
God
you.
bless you.
Man, we always take out the good guys, and if we take out the good guys, all we're left with is the bad guys. And bad promotes bad. I think one of the hardest things for me is that when when I moved to Colorado 30 years ago, I didn't have, my brother used to always have, he had a tattoo that said FTP, which means F the police. And I used to always talk to him, and I was like, well, remember Craig? And he's like, yeah, I love Craig. And I was like, well, he's a police officer. And he's like, well, what about Mike? And he's like, well, Mike's a police officer. And so I would have these conversations with him, and I would try to change his paradigm. And then he became friends with police officers. And then that fateful night that my brother died, I just remember thinking to myself that maybe I didn't take it far enough. I didn't expose him enough to the goodness that 95, 98% of the time, patrols our communities, as was stated here, 99%. I truly believe the police in this day and age are trying to do a good public service. And so, if you get a chance to write a letter, you can we'll figure out a way to send the letters so that we can support the letter. Let me see if I can find it here real quick. We'll get it in the comments by the end so we can actually get Ed Martin's email address so you can send letters to him there. By the way, I just want to say this about Stephanie Lambert. She's everywhere. She's in Pennsylvania. She's in Michigan. She's fighting her own case where they came after her for lawfare. And she's a special attorney. She does not care. She'll fight it to the bitter end. And when I come out and I'm like, listen, these guys are not going to, they're terrible attorneys, they're terrible judges. She also finds a way to say to us, well, Joe, it might not be that bad, or this judge might actually be a good judge. So she's always very optimistic about the things that I'm pessimistic about. But she does not represent guilty people. And she has worked really hard to help Patrick Byrne, to help Trevor here, and to help so many others. So if you get a chance to drop her a line and just tell her you support her and thank you, please do as well. Okay, lots of other stuff that I want to talk to you about today. We're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, we're gonna talk about ICE. And it's gotten really, 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 really bad. And it's hard to imagine that what we're dealing with right now is not headed towards a kinetic war. I heard, Kyle Clark, I went through and just, my attorney said, I need you to document all the stuff that Kyle Clark at 9 News has said about you. And so I documented all of those. And then we went through and looked at cases or things that were brought to 9 News that may have, in a bad light, put someone that was progressive or on the radical left, and the fact that he and others there did not actually address any of those concerns. So we're going to go quick commercial break. When we come back, I'm going to talk to you about, are we headed towards a kinetic war? And here's internally, are we headed towards a civil war? And should we be talking about holding people accountable? And can there be military tribunals? And how many pardons? And who should be pardoned? Because I think that the ink's not dry yet. We're talking about Trevor. We've also got to start talking about Joe Biggs. We got to talk about Stuart Rhodes. We got to talk about other people that the Department of Justice that are unnamed, people that never thought that they even had a voice. Those people should be pardoned. Frankly, it should be a little bit of a pardon party for the roots of what's happened at the DOJ. If you find that there was indiscriminate or evil doings on behalf or misconduct on behalf of the DOJ, I think at that point you have to revisit it. But we'll be right back. Hey, this is just in from Fidelity. Gold could hit $4,000 an ounce as the Federal Reserve cuts rates to cushion the U.S. economy. The dollar drops and the central bank keeps adding holdings. Gold has been on a record-breaking tear over the last few years, and it doesn't look to be slowing down in the years to come. Are your savings protected with precious metals like gold and silver? Are you waiting for gold and silver to shoot even higher in price? I want you to call my gold partner, Goldco, today and learn more about what precious metals can do for you. That's 844-960-GOLD, or visit untamedgold.com. gold.com. You'll get a free 2025 gold and silver kit, and you'll get info on the #1 precious metal offer in the game, where you can get up to 10% back in bonus silver just for getting started. But supplies are limited, so don't put it off. Call my gold partner, Goldco, at 844-960-GOLD, or visit untamedgold.com. That's 844-960-4653, or visit untamedgold.com. In every thread, in every stitch, Honor-Bound USA weaves the fabric of the American spirit. It's not just apparel, it's a testament to God, family, and country. At Honor-Bound USA, we're a family of patriots who put our faith, family, and America first. When you visit our website, you'll find a line of products that embody our commitment to pray, stand, speak, and act. As the official site for the Untamed podcast, all of our products proclaim speaking the truth with courage. We also have the powerful documentary from Professor David Clements, Let My People Go. Identify yourself as one of the few who are willing to stand for what they believe in. Join the Honor-Bound USA family today. Wear it as a badge of honor, commitment to the values that shape us, and a pledge to the bright future we will build together. Because when you're honor-bound, you're not just wearing a brand, you're embodying a lifestyle.
Hi, I'm Joe, Supreme Leader of DCF Guns. What is DCF Guns, you ask? We're the best damn gun store and range in the universe. Do we have guns?
Okay.
We have all the guns. We got small guns. We got big guns. We even have beastly guns. We offer all types of training, and we have 5 ranges across our 3 locations. I'm a good shot. And of course, we have all types of ammo. We even have flamethrowers. Woo! We offer incredible membership opportunities, and members save even more on guns, ammo, and accessories. Military, both active and retired, and first responders get up to 40% off memberships. Come join the DCF family today, where we keep the range hot and the deals hotter.
Make sure you're unmuted, please. Okay. When does common sense become the norm? When do we actually get to a place where we recognize we don't step over the bodies of Americans to give rights to people who are not Americans? When do we get told that we have to support illegals or migrants that come into this country that choose not to assimilate? When did it become racist to call out Somalis where they create a community that in essence run it like some sort of gang or cartel? Now, I'm not saying that every Somali is that. I'm not saying that every migrant that comes to this country is that way. But I want to point out a few things. I don't ever hear about the Vietnamese coming over to this country and creating problems and asking for entitlements. You don't see a lot of Chinese coming and asking the same problems. Matter of fact, pretty much they ace nearly every test, have the highest test scores out there. Matter of fact, the lawsuit at Harvard University was based on a Chinese student that was not admitted because of the sliding scale of saying that they were overrepresented. You know who isn't overrepresented? Or that is overrepresented? Jews, but they can get into anything they want. And look, this isn't anti-Jewish. It's that we just create rules that apply to one but don't apply to the other. We're not allowed to speak about the truth. When we do, they try to cut your tongue out. This is not a Jews are bad or Jews are good. It has nothing to do with that at all. What it has to do with the fact is that the scales are tilted by people that take or want to have that power and authority over the rest of us. And so you say, well, they value education more than we do. And I would say that who doesn't value education? I guess what I'm saying is that we always have to cater to the ridiculous, so we never get to really solving the problems. And ICE is out there doing a job. And right now, ICE has been demonized. If you are doing anything for ICE, they have this group of people that fluctuates back and forth, and that basically in certain areas of our country are wreaking havoc on those facilities and saying that what they're doing is inhumane. Well, what is more inhumane? Letting drugs just pour through the streets? And by the way, it's never anyone inside of those communities. The people inside of those communities are like, just get them out of here. Over and over and over again, the people that have that voice are also suppressed on social media. So the only voices you ever hear are this screaming liberal white woman who 80% of the time happens to be a part of the tribe that is screaming and yelling about the fact that we have to take care of this poor immigrant that works in a restaurant. Only that poor immigrant that works in the restaurant that they're arresting, 95% of the time committed a massive crime, a sex crime or a trafficking crime, or they still have to have jobs while they're committing crimes in the community. They have no right to be here. But now ICE is hitting the streets in New Orleans. And I don't know if we have the cut. We probably should find it. But there's also a massive problem. It's on Fox, I think. A massive problem in Chicago where they let out over 1,800 violent criminals. And they had lawful detainers on each one of them. And they said, yeah, we're not even going to follow that. We're just going to let them out on the street. At some point, we are going to have to deal with the lawlessness that is created by these radicals. But I want to start here. Here's a question. This is a reporter questions Gregory Bonvino on the streets of New Orleans. Let's go ahead and play this.
How many people did you detain today?
Still counting. A lot and still counting.
How long do you plan to be here?
That is a fantastic question till the mission's accomplished.
What is the ultimate mission?
Title 8 immigration enforcement.
What brought you to the Big Easy?
All cities are on target, and this is just another one of those.
Where are you headed next?
We're going to head this way and then see where it takes us.
How many other agents do you have out here with you?
We've got several hundred agents spread across the New Orleans area, so not just us. So we've got a lot.
He answered all the questions respectfully. And this is a report by Fox News on the work ICE is doing, the resistance they're facing. By the way, people are being flown to different areas of the country in order to basically become paid protesters. Let's go ahead and play this.
Is there with more. Hi, Garrett. Good morning.
Dana, good morning to you. Pretty much all weekend long, if Border Patrol was out on the streets, protesters were right behind them. And we'll show you some video of that. You can see this is over in the city of Kenner, just outside New Orleans, where this operation has been spending a lot of time. Kenner has the highest concentration of Hispanic residents in the state. And you can see Commander Greg Bovino and his team going door to door in that area looking for specific targets. And almost everywhere they went, a crowd was following them, blowing whistles, honking horns, yelling into megaphones, trying to warn the community that federal agents were in the area.
I pay a year, and I pay college for my kids. You know how much taxes I pay a year? I pay a
Next order.
Yeah, at one point, some of the demonstrators even followed Bovino and his agents into a gas station to confront them as they were buying drinks.
And we're not going to keep on stopping. We're going to keep on following you. So.
Got it.
You know, one of the things that makes this operation unique is that outside of New Orleans, local police departments are helping the feds with some of the immigration enforcement. Kenner's police department says its officers working with ICE arrested this high priority target, a fugitive with multiple warrants for robbery and domestic abuse. The city's police chief tells Fox his town is the complete opposite of a sanctuary city.
Look, I'm an elected police chief. I work for 70,000 people. I know.
If you impede a federal officer, I think you should be arrested. I think if you started arresting some of these protesters look, you can protest anytime you want, but when you're blowing whistles and you're actually interfering with their ability to capture someone that has committed a crime and is a threat to the people in the community, the citizens of our nation, then those people should be arrested as well. This soft on crime has been met with a soft on and a tolerance of the ridiculous. We should not have to. I don't think we should be tolerating it at all. But I also don't think you can throw 20 million people out of the country. And I've gone sideways with a few of you about this. Look, if you're a law-abiding non-citizen, you should put in your papers. You should try to get citizenship. There should be a path for those people to get citizenship. But the people that came in through the Biden era, those people should be asked to leave, right? That's my opinion, frankly. But in Louisiana, police are, this is crazy. This is the norm in Louisiana. So let's go ahead and play it.
Tuvieron que llamar a los refuerzos de la policía para poder bloquear la caravana que venía atrás de ellos. No acaban de bloquear el paso para que ellos pudieran irse libremente porque venía una caravana de muchas personas. Ya se van. Ahora mismo. Ya se van.
So what they're doing is basically standing in the way so they can't actually continue to follow the follow DHS and follow the Border Patrol. But here's, man, so how do you handle people that are, and I want to look at this from both sides. First of all, we had this conversation about whether or not the young people that are citizens of this country can get jobs. And I'm part of these different groups, and I look in these groups, and every single day I probably see 2 to 3 to 4 different messages of people that say, look, I can't find a job. If you guys have a beat on a job, I'd love. We put out an application for one job and had over 3,000 applicants for that one job. Is it that we can't fill these positions, or is it that the people that fill these positions, even at restaurants or some of these businesses, want to pay them a substandard wage? I don't know, but let's go ahead and play this. This is businesses are shutting down because of having Border Patrol in the area.
Are concerned. The business behind me, this is one of the businesses that decided to shut down. They're trying to avoid the situation with any of their employees or anybody who would come in the front door. If you look right here, Beck, if you want to show you this, look how they put this up. Everyone is welcome except ICE. And then here, they made it pretty clear. They want all the agents who are here to stop at the door, especially if they do not have a warrant.
And here are some protesters that attended a city council meeting demanding that there be ICE-free zones. Let's go and play it.
You're watching protesters being removed from a New Orleans City Council meeting. The crowd was there advocating for ICE-free zones as the Trump administration has begun immigration enforcement operations in New Orleans.
We will stay here until City Council decides to take a stand with us. Our demands are reasonable. Meet with your community. Meet with the constituents. The immigrant rights communities are organized and are ready to talk about how we create ICE-free zones.
Council President J.P. Morrell suspended public comments after several warnings were issued to the protesters. CNN reached out to police for comment, who said there were no injuries and no arrests made.
Look, I'm going to tell you something. And I think that this is how I see things. A vast majority of the people that are consuming things today in society they're not texters, right? So you have these up and coming kids that want to have a job, and they're like, I don't know, I texted that person. Did you pick up the phone and call them? No, I texted because that's what I like to do. So the young people are coming into society and feeling like they get to run things. And when I was young and I came into the workforce, I was shown the door very quickly. And in my companies, I show people the door very quickly. If you tell me that I'm going to do it my way, and I've said this is the way that you need to do it, I just tell you to get out. Right? It's not, you're not staying. But today, we've built this kind of catering to young people and say, well, we have to change and we have to adapt because they don't like to do those things. That's not how it works. And the same could be said for these loudmouths that show up to these city council meetings. They don't represent the people. Here's why I know they don't represent the people. Because I get to talk to business leaders all the time. Yeah, you'll have a taco stand that everyone inside of their business is illegal. And they probably pay them a substandard wage because that person is already getting entitlements from the state, free healthcare, free food, free education, free. They have basically taken everything they can away from the people in the community. Tax dollars. Now, the people are taxed at a pretty high rate. The average rate is somewhere around 55 to 56%. So 55 to 56% of all of your wages go towards taxes. Property tax, put plates on your car, gas tax, you name it, we are taxed. Sales tax, employment tax, state income tax, federal income tax. Everywhere you turn, they have taken more from us. And we've gotten to the place where we're just done. The people are done, but we're also done with the young people coming up telling us that we're going to do it their way. Their way's not working. It's actually degrading and destroying businesses. It's destroying the community. And the people that walk around and say that, oh, you have to adapt to this, we don't have to adapt to it. And we don't have to tolerate people being in this country that are not here legally, that are committing crimes. We don't have to allow for drugs to be legalized on the streets. We don't have to allow for that at all. We don't have to allow for stolen elections. We don't have to allow for, they keep kind of moving the goalposts on what we're supposed to kind of adjust to. And I said this to somebody who's, a client of ours. I said to him, I said, listen, why don't you just put your foot down and just tell them to do it your way or get out? And so he tried it. I said, well, he says, can you stay on the call? Brought him in, put me on speakerphone. I'm sitting there listening. And while I'm sitting there listening, he goes, well, and it was exactly what I just told you about. And you say, well, Joe, this doesn't really apply to us. Well, it does, actually. Because he told this young man, he says, listen, I need you to pick up the phone and start making phone calls to our clients. And the guy's like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I text. Like, I don't feel comfortable with picking up the phone and calling. And so he said, well, that's how they want to be talked to. He goes, yeah, but that's not how I want to talk to them. And he goes, look, I'm going to make this very clear. You can either make the phone calls, by the way, better make sure that they're in the system and they're recorded, or get out. And it shook this young man. And I'm sitting here listening to the conversation because we're so afraid to put our foot down and to show some discipline in our communities. And it is pervasive. And everybody goes, oh, no, you have to be nice to everyone. And no, you don't. No, you don't. You absolutely do not. You don't have to tolerate people that are doing harm to your company, to your family, to your neighborhood. You don't have to tolerate it. You don't have to tolerate illegals that are in our country taking from us what is not theirs. And there's lots of people that talk about America first. Well, frankly, we should put our mask on before helping others. And if you think that this is that what I'm saying is not a normalized part from across the entire country, I want you to listen to this. This is in New Orleans, people's responses on the street to ICE. Play it.
Now, the agents did get some heckling, but there were shouts of support as well and people who wanted to stop and take selfies, particularly with Chief Bovino.
I'm an immigrant. I'm from South Africa. I came here legally, in the legal way, in terms of my legal visa, and I did everything by the book.
DHS released mugshots of some of the people arrested so far as part of Operation Catahoula Crunch. The crimes include everything from battery to domestic violence and child endangerment. Unlike Chicago, what we did not see are the big crowds form up and riot control measures used like gas, things of that nature. And the big difference seems to be cooperation from local authorities.
Why would we not support our men in blue that are there to protect us in our own community? And what you heard from that guy, that's a normal response. And you would say, okay, they have a couple hundred, maybe even a couple thousand. I don't care if it's 10,000 people that show up. There are 330 million people in the United States. That means that 329,995 or 98,000 do not think the same way that these people think. So when they cause all of this pain, they cause all of this anguish, when they shut down roads, they are not the norm. And yet we keep thinking that this is the norm. If that was the norm, why do social media platforms deploy bots? Why do they deploy bots? Just let people have a conversation. Why are you using fake accounts that you've trained to have conversations that are the antithesis of what people are saying in the communities? Why? You wouldn't need it. Why would they not have free and fair elections? Why would you have to have mail-in ballots? People would just show up, vote. You wouldn't have to worry about the fact that there's no transparency between how ballots are filled out or whether or not they're harvesting them, or what they did in Michigan where they had an entire deal where they had a bunch of guns on the deal and 10,000 ballots and they were filling out the ballots and turning them in. You wouldn't have that as a problem. And if what was happening in our country legitimately represented the will of the people, if everyone was that upset, which they're not, it would manifest itself. You would be able to see it, but you can't. You have the same people running around over and over and over again that are saying the same thing over and over and over again. It's not fair. It's not humane. They have rights. They don't have rights. They came in here illegally. They have rights in Venezuela. They have rights in whatever country they came from. But if you commit a crime in this country, I'm so sorry. I actually don't care if you committed a crime 10 years ago and you robbed someone and they come for you today and you've been here 10 years and you haven't committed a crime since, you have to leave. The same way that if I were to go to Canada and I got a DUI in the United States, they would say, you cannot come into our country. True story. Try it. I don't have a DUI, but I will tell you that you can't get into Canada if you have a DUI. We have decided that we have to cater to the lowest common denominator inside of our communities. And this is why we're, in essence, a third world country. This is why we debate the ridiculous. Because frankly, we don't appreciate excellence. When young people in my company or any other company try to tell me how things are going to go, I tell them, it's been really nice having you. Get out. And I think that's what we have to get to. We have to get to a hard line where we're willing to say, hey, listen, we're no longer going to cater to the ridiculous. We're not going to capitulate to this idea that I have to, and by the way, this is why young people are having trouble finding a job, is because they feel like they can dictate the rules of that job. They can't, and they shouldn't be able to. And even larger companies are cutting out Google and Apple. They're cutting out these people that want entitlements. But we still have to deal with some of the symptoms that came from whatever it is that's happened in our country over the last 20 years, which is driven by all of these stolen elections. And that is this sense of entitlement, this sense of, has also pushed us to a place where things are unaffordable, where there are massive numbers of deserts, food deserts, opportunity deserts, education deserts. It's been replaced by the ridiculous. In the schools, they'd rather put up a pride flag than the U.S. flag. They don't want to have any sort of allegiance towards the flag of the country by which they want to live here and get free entitlements. But they want to tell you that they have this ability to socially, I don't know, turn themselves into a furry. But we allowed it to happen. Here's what else happened. I was going through the video of Tucker Carlson. And I put this post up, and it all kind of flows together. Oh, do you have that one? Yeah, can you put that up? Can you put that up real quick? So let me tell you about this. There's a thing called Stop Anti-Semitism that says Tucker Carlson may now earn the title of Anti-Semite of the Year. And if you look at the pictures, a picture of him that says that Candace Owens was going to be the Anti-Semite of the Year, but now Tucker Carlson said, hold my beer. I have never seen Tucker Carlson say something that was anti-Semitic. Never. I've watched every one of his videos. Nick Fuentes likes to hear himself talk. He's a highly intelligent individual. Tucker Carlson gave him a voice and said, listen, I want to interview you. But because the radical left and this cancel culture that just embodies the ridiculous, and because it's not even based on any truth, they will run towards the exit and tell you, you cannot interview that person. You cannot give any sort of air to Nick Fuentes. It's the same thing that happens on nearly every platform that I'm on. I've been canceled on every platform. I mean, Rumble does everything they can because I went after Dan Bongino. So even having a presence on Rumble, I get it every day. Joe, I find it difficult to watch your videos. Joe, it's the same thing. And it doesn't matter. The idea is that they want to silence any voice that they don't sanction. The Benny Johnsons of the world that say that the white woman, that the Kirkhoff woman who planted the J6 pipe bomb, is now a black kid that, by the way, ran DoorDash in DC, even though they know this is the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard. They've now just kind of switched gears. I've never seen Tucker Carlson say anything that's anti-Semitic. I even watched the interview with Nick Fuentes. It wasn't anti-Semitic. All he did is just ask questions and got answers. And some of the answers that Nick Fuentes gave, they were true. And you don't have to like the fact that it doesn't maybe put people in a good light. It doesn't make it any less true. And you can't just sit here and tell me it's anti-Semitic to speak truth. It makes no sense. Are we supposed to pursue truth, or are we allowed to, or should we build a community that just allows us to cater to fantasies? Well, I think one of the reasons why our communities are falling apart is because we've catered to the fantasies. Tucker Carlson was on Sean Ryan's podcast. And I'm going to play it. It's 11 minutes, and then I got to go. So I'm going to let you guys listen to this 11-minute clip. But I'll say this. My brain right now is going 100 miles an hour. I'm kind of going through and I'm saying, okay, what has happened to me over the last 5 years? In the last 5 years, I've had my wife get attacked, my children get attacked. I've had to fortify my homes. I walk around at all points with a gun on. I have a gun. No matter where I go, I have a gun. Doesn't matter. At any point, I am battle ready at any point. Just over the last couple of days, because of Kyle Clark, I had the comments sent to me of, somebody needs to run up on Joe. Somebody needs to put Joe out, take Charlie Kirk Joe. It's like an everyday occurrence. And it's just going to take one of these guys to say, okay, I'm going to be I'll tribute. The left does not care what they do as long as they are suppressing the truth. They do not want the truth to get out. That's why they killed Charlie Kirk. It wasn't that Charlie Kirk was talking to young people. It's that young people were listening. And in essence, we're all now just chasing truth. Tucker Carlson was always, I would say, awake. But he never got the opportunity to, I think, step into the reality, the lights, and see what was really happening in the community. And now that he can, he's not just awake. He is very, very aware of everything going on in the community. And now he's not muzzled by Fox. He's not muzzled by a paycheck. Candace Owens, you can like what she says or not like what she says. But nobody ever debates what she's talking about. They just find a soundbite and try to make it so that they can take that soundbite and discredit her. And what did they do to me? You had Jovan Pulitzer, Jeffrey Filio, the treasure hunter, a guy that basically has more sock puppet accounts and has never accomplished a thing in his life, except for grifting people out of $30 million for a QCAT, which is a scanner. It was a monumental failure. Here's a guy that was committed to an insane asylum because he has mental problems. And this is the guy that came out, was paid by someone to say, Joe, your notes related to Eric Coomer, we don't like your handwriting. Where they could basically create fake stories. Even the judge, probable falsity. We didn't even have a hearing. And the judge comes out and says, oh, the fact that you were on that call, probable falsity, yeah, we're going to give him depositions even before we go through the anti-SLAPP. That overruled a previous judge that sat on the bench for over 20 years. And the more and more you get down this, I've had every article written about me, and it doesn't even matter what they write about me. It's the fact that none of it's true, except for the fact that I did call for people to be tried for treason and hung because it's not a victimless crime. I did say that 100%. And I think it still needs to happen. I think we need to have military tribunals. I think what they have done to the American people by holding them hostage and bullying them to a place where they just, you submit to people like Kyle Clark, while they murder people with impunity and do whatever they want in the community and let people, violent people out on the streets so they can victimize our communities. No, I think those people need to be tried for what they've done. But over the last 5 years, I've just gotten to the point now where I've just accepted the fact that they can write anything they want. They can create this fantasy. And now they've done it they're doing it to Tucker Carlson, but it's not just the left that's now doing it. It's the same group of controlled opposition that come in and want to attack Tucker Carlson. They want to attack Nick Fuentes. You can say, well, he's an anti-Semite. Maybe he just recognizes the fact he can't indiscriminately kill hundreds of thousands of people in an area. I mean, even Bill Mowers and whoever the commentator, they got into this huge argument. I can't remember, but I was watching it and I go, she's talking about the fact that you can't just come in when they throw a rock and just blow up an entire building and kill 1,000 people, but that's what they've done. And it doesn't mean that you're anti-Jewish if you recognize that they're overrepresented inside the United States and that basically Israel gets a free, get whatever you want. It's got a get out of jail free card. I mean, literally a get out of jail free card with the Jewish guy that was in the Biden administration, that was in Las Vegas, that tried to sleep with a young kid, just gets on a plane and said, okay, no problem, arrested, gets on a plane, goes back to Israel. It's like no harm, no foul, no consequences. It's hard to ignore those things. And it's hard to ignore the fact that the American people were not treated fairly. You talk about what happened to Trevor, the fact that he should have a pardon. You talk about what they did to Joe Biggs and to Stuart Rhodes. And you're like, Joe, these are completely different events. No, they're not. See, violent criminals are let out on the street, and good people are persecuted on a normalized basis just so they can make themselves look good while telling lies about people in their community. That's the reality. So you had Stu Peters, you had Nick Fuentes, you had Candace Owens, you had Tucker Carlson. They said, these guys are anti-Semites. They're going to be the anti-Semite of the year. And yet I went and researched 100 hours, a couple hundred hours, and tried to find things that they said they were anti-Semitic. I couldn't find one thing. Now, I found things that they said about people that were leaders of Israel and bad things that they had done to other people. I found those, but they were true. Does it mean that I don't like my Jewish friends? No, because they're not the ones pushing the button to kill hundreds of thousands of people. And the same thing can be said for what we did in Iraq and Afghanistan, where we killed indiscriminately hundreds of thousands, millions of people under the guise of weapons of mass destruction. We got rid of Saddam Hussein, and what came in was a vacuum of worse. Look what happened in Syria and Egypt, and the guy that we had declared a terrorist, now 10 years later, he puts on a suit and a tie, and all of a sudden that guy's now our friend. We have this mentality in this country where we think that the political mechanisms that we have are sensical, and they match exactly what is happening in our communities. A justified persecution of the American people and a suppression of absolute truth. So I want you to listen to this 11 minutes. I'm gonna pray us out, then we're gonna let you do the 11 minutes because I gotta go. But just something to consider. Maybe it's not anti-Semitic. Maybe you have a group of people that have controlled or taken control of an entire other group of people. Maybe you just got bad people been promoted to the point where the bad people, and they just happen to be, by the way, there's just as many bad Catholics and they stick together too. And there's just as many good Catholics, which is why I brought up the game theory, trying to push all this stuff together into a very short period of time. But something to consider is maybe they're just saying that you shouldn't kill people indiscriminately, and there should be a set of rules for everyone, and not this set of rules that says, hey, we get to persecute people and we get to create political pawns, while over here, not one person has been arrested for what they've done to the American people. And I'm not just talking about 2020. I'm talking about going back to 2012, when we had Congress pass a law called the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act that allowed for them to lie to the American people with impunity and make it legal. And yet nobody's even talking about it, except for Thomas Massey. And then he becomes a threat. And then you have this fight, Marjorie Taylor Greene's fighting with President Trump. We got all this stuff that's happening. And frankly, the only people that lose, the only victims in all this are the American people. Both the left and the right, they get to eat. They get to continue to eat. And the scraps get thrown down. And then they want us to fight. So Tucker asked the question, a really simple question: are we headed towards war? Are we headed towards a civil war? And what does that even look like? What does it look like? He believes that we are. So let's pray it out, and then you guys can watch this 11 minutes. Father God, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thank you for Trevor. Thank you for his commitment to go back into law enforcement and to serve the people in his community. Thank you for the work that President Trump has done. Thank you for the work that our leaders are doing and kind of making heads and tails of all this nonsense that they have to push through every day. Look, we know that we have a lot of people inside of our government that are just not very good people. And so cleaning it out is going to be a little bit more complicated. But Father, I just ask you to give our president and the people around him the ability to make hard decisions, and that the people inside of our community can stand up and do the right thing to help him fight against this nonsense. I'll ask you to help Tina Peters, that she may have the burden lifted off of her, and that Tina can, she can get out. Help us that we may continue to push forward to restore you to our community and to our country, and that we may call what a spade is a spade and call out what is wrong, regardless of the consequences, that we may have courage, even as we're getting bullied by people that frankly are just terrible, evil people. I ask these things, Father, humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. All right, watch this 11 minutes, and I will see you guys tomorrow.
Come on, dude. We're moving toward one of two endpoints. One is a totalitarian society where you just don't have the option of disagreeing. You have to obey because you've got programmable digital currency and universal surveillance, and you just have to do what they say or they'll starve you to death.
It's not going to work here.
I hope it. I pray it doesn't.
It's not.
Or we're going to have a revolution. It's one of the two. We're getting totalitarian government or revolution.
It's going to work for a little bit, and then it's not going to work anymore.
I pray you're right. I'm a gold buyer on that basis, an ammo buyer. But again, I have no track record of seeing the future. But I'm convinced that the current course won't work because it's a lie. If you tell people they own the government, they're in charge, they rule through the representatives in this democratic republic. That's what we've told. That's our system. Has been for 250 years. If you tell them that's the system and you don't deliver on it, they go crazy. They go totally crazy. If you tell them, by the way, I've spent a lot of time in
What do you think happens
Yeah?
when a government takes everybody's currency in a country that has more fucking guns and ammunition than anywhere else in the entire world?
I mean, as I've said a million times,
it works for a little bit. And then when the desperation kicks in, that shit doesn't fucking work.
Well, so that's exactly, we're saying the same thing. We're moving toward totalitarianism or revolution, violent revolution. By the way, if you tell people they can't say what they think and their vote doesn't matter, how many options have you left for them? Just one. Violence.
Very fucking many.
That's right. So don't do that. Don't do that. It's much better to give a little. And you do this with your kids. Especially when they become teenagers, you reach a point where it's like, you can smell the defiance on them. How do I handle this? Just punch them in the face? Cut them off? Starve them out? No. You listen. You make it clear that you're in charge. You'll be deciding. But you take their position into consideration because you have to, because they're becoming adults. You have to be a little flexible. No, you can't smoke weed at the breakfast table. There's some things you will never accept. But you can't ignore every single signal you're getting from your children. Well, your population's very similar.
I'm getting really angry right now.
Why?
I think we should go. I think we should go out back and blow some shit.
Sorry.
Where do we go from here? So,
well, it's always darkest before it's completely black, as you know. Sorry, I'm stealing someone else's line, but I do like that line. I don't know. I mean, clearly just in political terms, we're at the end of something and the beginning of something new. and no one wants change. I don't, but we're not in control. And the current system clearly doesn't match the moment at all. And so it's changing, and it'll change along probably predictable lines, but also in some unpredictable ways. But I'm for democracy. Most people are not. The overwhelming majority of people don't want democracy. They just don't want it. They don't like it. It's tedious and annoying and too imperfect, and they want results. And so we're moving towards something that is not what we had before. And, you know, I'm not in favor of that. I wish we could return to 1985, but we can't. So, but you have to just reduce the amount of lying. Like, lying is bad. Lying is bad. It alienates you from other people. It alienates our leaders from their people they lead. Everything about it is bad. Just no more. Let's just stop lying.
Gen Zers are definitely not responding to the traditional bullshit. I mean, you had mentioned that that Nick Fuentes they are gravitating towards that. Then you got, the other side, Mamdani, just won mayor of New York. I mean, what in your mind, what do you think?
They're branches
10,
on the same
20
tree.
years from now, what does it look like?
I mean, look,
does it look the same?
I feel weird speaking for people 30 years younger than me or more. What do I know? But I have actually made an intensive, longitudinal, good faith effort to find out because I matter. Plus, I've got a ton of kids in that age range. And my impression right now is that, of course, they're enraged. Both sides are enraged by people serving Israel. What? Stop with the Israel. Be quiet. Nobody cares about Israel. Just shut up about Israel. But I don't think it's primarily about Israel. I really don't. I don't think people care that much. I know I don't care at all about Israel. I really think it's about economics. I really do. I think that's what Mamdani and Fuentes have in common. And there are a bunch of people who want to pretend it's about ethnic hate or even about foreign policy. I don't believe that. I don't think the evidence shows that. I think what they're really mad about is the lack of opportunity, economic opportunity that they know they're facing. And then if you look at the debt loads, that's what I look at. Like how much debt does the average 30-year-old have and who does he owe it to? And it's overwhelming. It's like unbelievable. I had 10 grand on a credit card once. I mean, I literally couldn't sleep over it because that was weird. 25 years ago, 10 grand. I just didn't make enough money. I had to get another job. It was fine. But debt is the problem for young people. And what's so infuriating and alienating is that both parties are completely on the side of the lenders and not the debtors. And in fact, it's a symbiotic relationship. There is no borrowing without lending and vice versa. They are engaged in this dance, and ultimately one is basically exploiting the other. That's just a fact. And no one will acknowledge that. So the Democratic Party is like, well, everyone has too much student loan debt. Well, so who's benefiting from student loan? Well, the student loan lenders are benefiting, of course. But so are the colleges. They're being subsidized for like garbage. It's garbage, right? They're getting rich from these student loans. The colleges are. Mm-hmm. And their administrators. And then so are the lenders. But the Democrats are like, well, so because of this, we're going to get rid of student loan debt, but taxpayers are going to pay for it. Really? So you spend your life trying to pay your kids' college tuition. It gets super expensive because the lenders and the colleges are getting rich, and then you have to pay for other people's college? Like, what? And the Republicans are just like, shut up, pay your debts. It's your fault. Which is partly true. You accrue a lot of debt. You shouldn't have. On the other hand, it's not just you at fault. So here's the analogy that always occurs to me that I never hear anyone use, which is drug addiction. So you got the drug addict, and we disapprove of drug addiction. Of course we do, you fucking drug addict. But ultimately, we don't punish the drug addict as harshly as we punish the person who sells them the drugs, do we? Who's worse, the addict or the dealer? Obviously the dealer. Look at the penalties. Look at the moral outrage. Are we mad at Pablo Escobar or some guy dying of a drug OD in Central Park? It's not even close. Pablo Escobar is the root of the problem. He's the one getting rich from the addict's misery. Well, I have no idea why we don't assume the same posture toward debt. Yeah, the kid shouldn't be, 50 grand in hock to a credit card company, but what about the credit card company? They have no role in this? They sent this kid a credit card offer in college when he's 23? They're letting him buy DoorDash on credit, which is very common now. Buy now, pay later, that's debt. It's disguised, no interest, but there are late fees. It's debt, and it's debt slavery, and they're enslaved by it. But the slave master never gets blamed, only the slave? Tell me how that works. That is totally illegitimate. It's immoral. And it's on us as adults. I mean, I have no debt. That's rule one, no debt. I won't buy, I can't afford it. I'm not buying that. Not because I'm a virtuous person, because I'm so afraid of debt, because I know that it means no freedom. I'm indebted. I'm literally indebted. I'm not free. And no one ever says that. Anyone who says that is like, shut up, socialist. But even the socialists aren't saying it. That's what blows my freaking mind. That's when you know it's a real conspiracy. You talk to the DSA kids, oh, I'm so radical, I'm DSA. Whites are bad, I'm pro-trans. That's not radical, dude. That's just fucking stupid. You want to challenge power? Why don't you criticize the banks once in a while? What? All they want to talk about is race and gender. Where's the real power? In white supremacy when whites are dying off? It's not in white supremacy, son. It's at Citibank and JP Morgan. You didn't know that? They themselves are tools of actual power, left and right. The right is way off into libertarian economics, just the free market. There isn't a free market in this country, period. Hasn't been in my lifetime, for sure. There definitely isn't now. It's a monopoly economy, obviously. And then the left is way up and all this other garbage meant to divide the population against itself to keep them from challenging actual power. And I'm not for revolution, but we're going to get a revolution if we don't readjust a little bit soon. So I would say let's hold lenders at least as accountable as we hold debtors, because that's fair and obvious. And in fact, I think lenders are way more culpable than borrowers. And let's take a good look at the interest rates. No society has ever allowed usury at the scale that we do. Oh, shut up. You can't talk about usury. Why? Because you're benefiting from it? Fuck you. I'm not afraid of you. Like, are you? No. What's the top rate for a payday loan in the United States? I'll tell you, it's 600% annually. 600%. That's legal. Yes.
Holy shit.
And why don't we care? Because it's just black people. It's the ghetto, or, it's poor people. It's not just black people. Of course, it's literally not. But in your mind, you're like, oh, that's pathetic. A payday loan. Okay, but that's a human being. That's a fellow citizen, and we don't care at all. 600% annual interest.
It's a desperate human being.
Why is that allowed? Why is it so hard to say, how about no? The same reason you can't make my daughter into a prostitute, OnlyFans, because it's disgusting. And if we can't say it's disgusting, at the very least, before we even say it's illegal, how about it's just bad? Then we've lost the most basic defense mechanism that allows any society to continue. You have to be able to say, no, that's too big a threat to us. No, Satanism is not the same as Christianity. You can't have a Satanist creche in the state capitol, or whatever they call it, shrine to Satan. We're not doing that because that's self-destruction. That's suicide. Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.
Rise up untamed in the heart of the fight where the wild ones roam. Joe Oltmann's calling, bringing truth back home. From conservative daily to this untamed fire, we shatter the silence, lifting spirits high. No chains can hold us, no lies can prevail. Authentic and fearless on this rugged trail. Patriots gather under stars and stripes. Untamed nation. Untamed nation, let the truth roll out in this land of the free. Standing proud from sea to shining sea, we won't back down. Catch the fire, wear the crown. Untamed nation, it's our battle song, motivating hearts where the brave belong. Yeah, untamed and wild, forever strong. Play it again all night long. Time to heal. Joe's voice leads the untamed crew. True It's our